Okay, guys. So I believe you can hear me now. Sorry for inconvenience for a 2-minute delay. Can you please confirm whether you are able to hear me? Whether you are able to hear me? Just confirm. Guys, I hope I am audible now, and sorry for the delay for a 2-minute brief. Can you just confirm whether I am audible? You can chat box me, you can put in a chat box. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your updation. Okay, so we are into another important session on business news and analysis. I have carefully crafted some important topics for you, and these important topics will be very, very useful to a context of business and understanding. But before I start, I must say one important statement which should always remember in your mind that, guys, these sessions are just a kind of a informative session, informative understanding, but will not be useful until unless you will start reading by yourself. Remember this word: if you read good, you will be definitely leading the world in future. So, needless to say, the importance will only come when you will start reading different articles, different paragraphs, different books, and so on and so forth. So let us proceed for the news today. Many of the students have been demanding about this news, which have a good repercussion on Indian economies also. Here, I'll just discuss in the brief about what this Fed rate cuts mean, why they have done it, and most importantly, how this is connected to the Indian economy. So basically, we will be covering in this entire thing in a simple language. You can put forward your queries in chat box, so I'll address once I'll deal this about this news. So first of all, US Fed rate means there is a federal bank over there in US, just like RBI in India. So US federal rate cut. That means they have their national bank rates being cut by US federal. US federal, they have cut the rates. So why they have done it? Because they are seeing that in the future past the inflation is being less. So what exactly has happened for your comprehension purpose? Let me just take you through it. Any central government across the country, the main role that they play to manage the monetary policy, the flow of money. So what exactly in this they do? They generally inflow and outflow they control by increasing or decreasing in the interest rate. So that means if the interest rate cuts, that itself means they wanted to increase the flow of money. Now why this happened? Because of the simple reason that they are not feeling any inflationary pressure. They are not considering there is a specific inflation in a system. Now why this has been done? So first of all, let us try and understand. During the COVID, we have seen there was a miscalculation by maximum economies by considering that this is a crisis of money. But actually, you can see in a COVID, we have seen these 2 years was very unpredictable. So people were not having a crisis on money part; they were having a crisis on a confidence part. They were not spending money because they were not confident enough. Now that's the mistake maximum of the central bank have done. Excluding India, we were lucky enough that we have not done it. So what generally they do is whenever they are in crisis, these big economies, they generally follow a principle called Keynes principle, where they pump money into the system, and then from there they generally come up with a crisis. So the same thing they have done it for this context also. And let me tell you guys, that has made it really really bad decision, because they have pumped so much money into the system, which actually has created a high inflation. Now why inflation? Because of simple reason, if there is excessive money into the system, the value of money will go down. So if the value of money will go down, that itself means there will be high inflation in a system. So US, major European countries, Canada, Australia, maximum countries were in a struggle. They were witnessing the highest ever inflation. Probably some of the countries are witnessing inflation on double digits also. Generally, what happens is inflation in these countries are very lower number. So that's why historically US bank has increased their interest rate to a next precedented level. This is the right now the interest rate before cut was around 5 point something 5.5% is other number. So 5.33% exactly. Now after the cut the interest rate would be 4.83. Trust me, next slide I'll show you the numbers. You will be surprised because generally in US, like a country, you will not find that much of an interest rate. Their interest rate, higher interest rate means higher borrowing cost, which will actually going to impact corporate in the longer run. But because of the inflationary pressure, they were forced to do this. So let us just see the numbers first. The main impact of increasing and decreasing of the interest rate can be covered in this particular slide. So you can see when the interest rate need to be increased, when the interest rate need to be decreased. So whenever the interest rate are going down, that means the RBI, the central bank have confidence in the system. So whenever they have confidence in the system, what they generally do is they wanted to make borrowing cheaper by reducing the interest rate. So that generally happens. They wanted to encourage spending. They want that people should buy more and more money as a loan, and then they spend money more and more. So this has happened when the lowering of the interest rate, but that only happens when there is a lower inflation in the system. So that entire thing begins with the systems of inflation and then context. But increasing interest rate is just contradictory to the previous one. If there is a high inflation rate, they are forced to increase the interest rate in such a manner that until that will be controlled. So generally what happens is economy like US has the appetite to actually handle this much of money. They have a very simple phenomena. Whenever they are in crisis, they think there is only one crisis: people does not have money. If there is an unemployment data high, they think the people does not have money. So they have one solution only. They don't think about the second solution. So they just pump money. In 10 out of 8 times, they generally get succeed. Where they pump money into the system, there is a high spending amount over there. So whenever they spend money higher in a higher number, generally what happens is that absorption is already there, that consumption is already there. It does not reflect into the inflation. But in the COVID time, it was not a crisis. So they have misjudged it. So we were lucky enough that we have not followed the path. Generally, pumping money can be done in multiple ways. The best way would be printing currency and giving additional currency to the central bank. Eventually, central bank will lend up these currency easily to different banks, different commercial banks, and then commercial banks, what will they will do? They will lend easily to the final customer. So if the interest rates are lower as 0.5%, you will also go and buy a loan. You will also think about, let's say, buy an iPhone 16 if I'm getting a 0% interest rate or 0.5% interest rate. So this is what the context that you need to understand. Let me just give you the brief about this entire comprehension. I have intentionally taken a data from 22 onwards. You will be surprised enough to see here. Now, if you can see on March 17, 22, the federal rate were as low as 0.25 to 0.5%. Means if you are borrowing a loan, so a bank of US is getting a loan from your federal bank with as low as 0.25%. If I will add a certain margin on it, then only it will increase to 1% to a final customer. So 1% borrowing is a very cheap cost. But because this is the time the reflection of inflation has started, so they started increasing the interest rate, and this was the historical number. This number has been increased to 5.5% up to 5.5%. You can see this is the first cut in last almost 2.5 years. They have done the first cut. This was the first cut because now they are confident, as the federal bank governor was saying this. Now we are confident enough. Probably we will have a lower interest rate. Now same thing has happened with India also. So we were having an interest rate. We generally called it as a bank rate or a right, which was as low as 4%. Now this directly reflects the borrowing cost. So if the bank rate is lower, that means the commercial bank will get a lower, the cost will be very lower for them. If their cost is lower, as a customer, we will also have a lower cost. So it is directly related to our costing part. So this was the time that entire world was facing the crisis of inflation, and India was also struggling in some or other numbers. So we also started increasing the interest rate, and it has reached to 6.5% in the current trend. Since 2023 May, they have not increased any interest rate. Subsequently, they have also not decreased the interest rate. Although the inflation rate right now from last 2-3 quarters is almost in between 4 to 6%. The comfort zone of an inflation for a country like India is somewhere between 4 to 5%. Country like US, it is below 2%. Now, why they have decreased the interest rate right now? Because it is being said that 2% it is coming below than 2%. So this is the entire structure. Federal Bank has increased. Now, what would be the subsequent benefit for it or a disadvantage for it? What would be the impact on it? Let us try and understand. Please don't relate with the today's news. Today, Sensex was dropped with a historical number, once again with a huge number. Today's impact on Sensex was not because of the federal bank. It was the impact of the war which is going on in between Israel and Iran. So that's the different context. But understand, if there is a lower interest rate, that means the lower return in US. If the lower interest rate, lower return in US. If the lower return in US, the investor of US will go to other countries for finding out more returns. So what will happen effectively if the interest rate will go down to the historical low as a 0% or 0.5%? The investor will take out their money from the US system and they will start investing in the other emerging markets. One of the market could be considered as India. So eventually this entire context is a direct relation. Although India is a far different economy than US, but we also have a subsequent resultant. Ultimately, always remember, India does not completely follow aggressive strategy of US, but if there are defensive strategy of US and developed world, we certainly follow that. So you can say India is more conservative economy as compared to US, and trust me, there are multiple times, not once, not twice. I think we can say multiple times India has proven ourselves very correct. Our conservativeness has actually affected India positively rather than negatively. Yes, in some cases we may find that the growth is not coming up because of the interest rates are low, but overall I believe that has a positive impact. You can talk about 2008 crisis or 2020 COVID crisis. Every time India has done it correct perfectly, and that's the way it should be. So I think this is the first news, guys. What basically we could talk about it, and I believe you must have understood it. I would request you to follow it. Probably the biennial monetary policy committee report will mention the next time they may come up with the change in the interest rate, because in certainly almost from 1.5 years they are meeting and they are not changing the interest rate because they are still not confident on it. So let's see, we can talk about it. So the next basic news about us is the summit of future. Now this is a predominantly a different news, but a very powerful and impactful context. I would absolutely urge every one of you to understand this news, because summit of futures will have a very important repercussions, with very important positive context which every one of us. So in a broader context, when you will see summit of future, has two major contexts that was there. I hope you know who is he. He is Mr. Anthony Guterres, who is the General Secretary of UN. Right now, Israel has banned them because of his statement, which are coming towards in favor of which is against the activity which Israel is performing. But still, this guy was again is in news in multiple ways, in multiple different ways. Let us talk about the only the positive context of this particular news. So the majorly summit of future has two major contexts. Okay, just a minute. First would be the two major things being discussed in the Summit of Future. Actually, this was subsequently planned by Anthony Guterres way back, and I believe it has a very good positive attribute. So this summit was connected with the two major aspects. First is the global digital compact. So there is an absolute need of preparing a common global digital context. When we say digital, when we talk about digital platform, we know how world has aggressively shifted towards the digital world. We could simply say the world of digital is absolutely different from the other world, but subsequently this particular world has also come up with multiple tasks, multiple challenges. The major challenge, the major task is how to moderate, how to understand, how to actually moderate this entire structure. So this discussion was happened, but parallelly, the second important thing, which is probably the most important point, is was there that we need to talk about declaration on the future generation. We actually call them as the Sustainable Development Goals. So this SDG is the contextual, very important thing which is being discussed. Although all SDGs were not popularly discussed in this particular summit, but this is one of the important part of this summit where we need to talk about it, where there are 17 goals being planned. Okay, this was first introduced in 2015, which with an expectation of 15-year down the line, 15-year plan of sustainability on a development front. We wanted to be on a sustainability side, so we needed to be prepared a goal. Goal, when I say, we have made a vision of development as well as the sustainable part. So this has basically 17 type. I'll just quickly name the name of them. They are again bifurcated into multiple categories. I would absolutely urge every one of you to go and understand this news very detailed. First is no poverty is the first and the foremost goal. No hunger, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, then clean water and sanitization, affordable clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure required, reduce inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice and strong institution, and partnership for the goals. These are the 17 way forward you can say about our future. This plan is being done till 2030. So let me just give you the timeline also, so you will have a basic understanding towards this. The timeline of this is such a way that first it was introduced in 2015 with the agenda called 2030 agenda. Then 2020 when 2020 there was 75-year happened of United Nations formation. United Nations was established in 1945. So from 45 till 2020 it was 75-year completed. So there are UN 75 declaration. Then common agenda. Then the 23 there was an SDG meet. 20 to 24 when there was a proper discussion behind it, and 24 when this pact of the future is being completed. Now you can simply say the timeline is covering multiple aspects of it. That is very crucial and comprehensive. We need to actually talk about it. First, this being as I told you introduced in 17 with this, then there are declaration of that, then there are common agenda has come up with this, and then in 2030 we started talking about how we can actually comprehensively reach to this 2030 agenda. Then 22-24 there was General Assembly passed the resolution to hold this summit on last week. That's why I've taken the news. 20 to 23rd September was 10 days before, and then this is being discussed in this. Apart from this future generation, the most important thing that they had come up with a SDG is about the digital global compact. That is again a very crucial point. Now, here are some good numbers related to the SDGs, which we really need to comprehend well. And our Prime Minister was also there. So basically, he has also mentioned few things. Although, see, still you need to understand, when I was reading this news, almost 17-18% of the target has been achieved in last almost 9 years, 8 years. So still there are 6 years to go. But see, what happens is when this comes with an international forum where 190 plus countries are there, so it is quite difficult, quite challenging to convince all the things. So when I say sustainable development, that does not mean come with very simple things. This require a lot of effort, lot of money, lot of sacrifices from the specifically from the developed nation. So the countries like China and other countries are not generally accepting this very easily. So it is quite difficult, but still they have achieved many things. You can see some numbers. Renewable energy consumption has drastically improved from 16.7% to almost 18.7. It may also increase with some more numbers. And there is a reduction in HIV. There was one goal which was concentrating on health. Then child mortality rate is also decreased almost 4.9 million. And then internet access, again digitally internet access has been reached to next level. 95% now people are connected. That's why the digital compact is also required. And lastly, about in this news, we also need to talk about our Prime Minister's speech. I'll mention few important points that they have mentioned. He has mentioned in this speech, and that is very crucial. I believe, guys, you need to understand this. One of the important points that he has mentioned is about the conflict which are happening. We are pretty much aware that right now, post-COVID, the world has once again shifted to the era of 1920s, 1930s, where there are subsequent wars are happening. So currently, which are the conflicts are happening, we really need to understand that overall this cannot be solved by power. This can be solved by the cooperation of the common agenda. So first thing he has mentioned about the cooperation. Second thing about he has come up with the three major threats about cyber, maritime, and space. Parallelly, he is also urging to make a global digital rules. India is also witnessing the problem, the challenges about major digital happening. What I believe that is one of the point that he wanted to take it forward. Global digital rules. It is a need of an hour, because if there is no global digital rules, this entire thing will go again haywire. Apart from that, he has mentioned about his achievement in last 10 years. About 250 million people have been uplifted from the below poverty line. He has also mentioned about the inclusion. Last year, India has done G20, and G20 summit. The biggest achievement, if somebody will ask you about G20 summit, which has happened in India, was inclusion of African Union. We could successfully expanded the G20. So now G20 will include the African Union also. So ultimate purpose is to this entire thing is to include those regions also which has not been touched upon. Now, why he has mentioned this? Because he was pointing towards the UNSC, United Nations Security Council. You can see in this right now also the UNGA was happening. So under the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly, maximum of the world leader has mentioned that there is a need of expansion of UNSC. So United Nations Security Council is required to complete this. And we all know once this UNSC will be expanded, I believe India will be the first country to join hand in this League of Five Nations. Currently, there is only 5 nations who have veto power. We called it them as a permanent member. India definitely deserves. Why India deserves? You can see the statement mentioned that the interview of Mr. Jaishankar also. All world leaders were saying India is the largest populous country in the world. We are the largest democracy. We are the 5th largest economy and will reach 3rd largest in very soon. Then India is the most responsible nation. We have never shown an aggression strategy. India is being responsible in terms of sharing the resources also. You can see during the COVID time, we have not only distributed free vaccines, but also we have distributed multiple aids to different countries which are required. So in multi-front, India is one of the nation. We are the country who have included African nation. So multiple ways you can talk about where India is one of the key player. Apart from that, he has talked about the digital public service we have used so far, which was successful, and he has given a vision of one earth, one family, and one future. So this comprises about the entire future summit. The most important thing I would urge everyone is to understand about the SDGs. It is one of the important point in this era. Okay? Now let us move to the next important things I believe, which was being connected towards the Quad. So I think we all know another summit, Quad summit. So these are the four countries you can talk about. We should know the name of the four people. Also, I'm mentioning this. This is Australia's Prime Minister, Mr. Anthony Albanese, US President Joe Biden, then Japan's President Fumio Kishida. Fumio Kishida is no longer now a Prime Minister because he has some other person has won the election. Prime Minister of India and Narendra Modi. So Quad is nothing but a security alliance. Why it is called a security alliance? You can see in this map. This map is a perfect example. So these are the four countries. When we will plot in a map, and you will just add these dots to it, will form a quadrilateral. So what does this quadrilateral is? Quadrilateral is nothing but a quadrilateral's subsequent short form. So why this entire summit was formed? Who has formed it? Why it is important for India? But before that, Quad is and somebody will ask you what is Quad. You can simply say Quad is a maritime security alliance between these four nations. So this basically focus on the maritime securities of Indian and Pacific Ocean. So you can see here, Indian and Pacific Ocean. This is nothing related to the border issues. This is nothing related to any economic transaction. This is nothing. It was basically formed in the year 2007 because there was a huge tsunami happened in Japan. So that time Prime Minister of Japan has actually initiated this. Mr. Shinzo Abe, the great Shinzo Abe, one of the very popular leader ever happened in the Japanese history. Mr. Shinzo Abe has first actually requested to form this alliance, but the purpose was not China that time. The purpose was to have a common security alliance in terms of the future disasters which can happen. Japan has witnessed the huge tsunami in, I think if I'm not wrong, 2004 or 5 in a year. So this alliance was initially formed in 2007, but all ज़्यादा interest नहीं था. आराम से 2007 में जब ये start हुआ, so maximum of people were not that interested on this content. So what they have done is they have very easily they generally क्या होता है जब बहुत ज़्यादा अगर interest नहीं होता है तो इसके बारे में ज़्यादा कोई बात नहीं करता है. So 2007 में although it was formed, but actually it is revamped in the year 2017. Now 2017 से 17 में बड़ा dramatic change हुआ और वो change था basically in China. What has exactly happened? China में we had a new president. That new president, Chinese Premier Xi Jinping. After Xi Jinping's introduction in China's premiership, China has again changed dramatically. 2012 onwards, China has become more aggressive. Their approach towards the world, specifically towards the neighbors, specifically Japan and India, both are the neighbors of China. So the problem with China is they were very aggressive in economic front also and in military front also. So 2012 onwards, there was an issue, there was a problem. Many were facing. India were also struggling. Japan were also struggling. So after Donald Trump's induction in the US president, India and Japan once again requested to restart this entire dialogue. In 2017, after 10 years almost, this entire discussion, the entire summit was restarted, and then one by one, this summits has started happening. So this summit was recently happened in Delaware, US, and India will be hosting this summit next year. So I think Quad is again a subsequently an important context for Indian point of view. China, we are already struggling with multiple front, although this does not context with LAC or Chinese border, but this is also important because of the many contextual reasons where China will not be able to dictate in multiple fronts in terms of the Pacific Sea, Pacific Ocean, and Asian Sea. So I think about this Quad, this much is the reason. I have taken up a news only on the month of September, which was very new. So I believe you can also consider me connect. Now, after this, I have come up with another news related to China's economy, which was primarily contextual towards the negative sides of a China which was happening, which we can simply say. So China is in a struggle context. We can simply say China is basically struggling, and in terms of struggling, these some numbers are coming. The numbers which were basically primarily in terms of the balance of payment. So we could talk about what does the balance of payment actually signify, and then accordingly I will put up a reason why balance of payment is being reduced. What are the major consequences? What could it impact to the India? Now, balance of payment is nothing but your capital account and current accounts balance. So generally in any economy, it should always balance just like a balance sheet. So if let's say an example of India has a current account deficit. Current account means imports are more than exports. So if imports are more than export, current account deficit is there. So we have a deficit in our current account, but the amount of deficit will be adjusted in capital account, because the amount excessive that we are borrowing from other countries or importing from other countries is actually will be considered as a capital or a goods which can be included in capital account. So balance of payment of any country need to be always equal. Now the second point is why China has reduced the balance of payment of $15 billion. Here the China's balance of payment reduction means China's exports are reducing. China is a mostly will be export driven economy. So China is a net surplus to almost all the countries across the world. So they have a net surplus. So they are highly dependent on their cheap exports, which they are doing it. So based on that, only the entire Chinese context need to be understood. So you can try and comprehend with these certain uses. I will explain one or two in very importantly. First of all, the most important thing is the trade war which is happening between European Union and the Chinese people. The main reason behind this is the electric vehicle. So for you people, you can just comprehend it. Next time if I get opportunity, I'll discuss about the Chinese electric vehicle, how they have completely dominating the entire world in terms of the production of the specifically the batteries. The electric vehicle preparation is not a big deal. The most important component here is the batteries. So basically what is happening, China has actually acquired maximum reserve of the lithium, and because of the maximum reserve they have, they can produce very cheap lithium batteries. Because of the cheap lithium batteries, they can very easily selling to the rest of the world, specifically the European countries. Now, when the European countries realize this, China's products are highly subsidized, they resisted. So initially they were resisting, but now they are started banning. One by one the countries have started banning, which has impacted the exports of China really badly. So that is one of the main reasons. India also have a very similar position about the subsidies. We also don't want countries to give subsidy to their product. We don't have any problem with any company coming to our country and selling their product. We have only one problem when the company is coming with the benefit or with the help of any country's government. So if a country's government is subsidizing their product and this company is coming or that product is coming to our market, that will be a problem. So in WTO, any government from last 25-30 years, you can see we have one simple condition. any company can come without any subsidized product. You can send your company, come up here in India, do an open market competition with our companies and have it. So some may think that may be wrong, but that's the way that we need to perform it. So on a broader context, US, one of the reasons is on subsidy. US election is being seen as one of the primary threat to the entire context of the US, the China problem. We already know Donald Trump is not in a favor of basically China, but parallelly, some statements from Kamala Harris about Democrats also is coming very alarming for China. Other major reason is Chinese economy was showing stress. Primarily, you can see China was in deflation. I think 2 quarters before. That was a shocking thing because deflation is very hazardous. Deflation is very difficult. But that's what basically the entire world is moving around currently because of the demand of the product is not there, excessive supply lead up into the deflation part of China, which I think they have managed it quickly. The next quarter they had come up with an inflation. Apart from that, debt taken by local government which was reaching around 7 to 11 trillion dollar. Parallelly, the Chinese private sector companies as they started receiving the retrospective taxes notice. So these all problems has managed, maintained, and combined has made this entire context to a next level thing where China has actually some or other problem that they are struggling. Now, this news a bit around 40 45 days, but 3 4 days before there is a news came in terms of China's economies accepting this entire context and how they have accepted. They had come up with the stimulus package to the Chinese economy. What does the stimulus package mean? Stimulus package simply means where the central bank or a government is putting extra effort by printing currency or providing excessive money to the system, so the money will be easily flowed to the end user. I already discussed the same thing in my news in US news. So they have announced the stimulus package, and I think today the market I have not seen about the China's market, but day before yesterday, 2 3 days before, China's market were very promising that point of time as soon as they have listened this news. So in a contextual point, China is now in terms of growth also being behind us and parallelly facing a heat because of the Xi Jinping's very aggressive approach. His promise, the most important project that he is working on, the one belt one road initiative, which is also impacting negatively in terms of the context. So this is another news which I wanted to cover. Apart from this, one of the famous businessmen, I'm not taking the name, has shared this image in Twitter, and I believe I found very interesting. He has specifically mentioned that oil market in India is currently, sorry, not in India, across the world, oil market is almost $2 trillion. So why he has mentioned? Because he was pointing out on India's government that we are still not seeing this as a promise. We are not still seeing as an opportunity. India, primarily for your exam, for your understanding, India does not produce oil much. We have certain reserve and we can acquire reserve from other country, but we don't do this. We simply import crude oil, we just refine it and sell it to our people. The reason behind is India is not very optimistic about this particular source. So that's why crude oil for us is something which we wanted to पीछा छुड़ाना चाहते हैं. We don't want it to continue with it. So that's why India is not very promising. But this man has specifically mentioned that we need to think about. Why he has also mentioned that although we are working on renewable energy, but that will take time. It will not be an easy task for a country like India. He was mentioning 2040 we will have crude oils with us. Compulsory we will be seeing the crude oil. So I think this is a very interesting chart. Crude oil value wise 2.1 trillion. Iron ore is the largest in terms of the volume wise, and the gold in terms of the commodity. It's the most precious commodity, but parallelly this crude oil is 10 times bigger than the in terms of the value. So that is one of the things which we could comprehend. government need to work on as per this article above, should also think about the alternative towards the producing also in context rather than only refining the oil. So that is another news. Lastly, I'll talk about this, which was majorly were being discussed when we talked about between many people. In brief, I will explain my context towards this conflict, and then probably you can take it forward from this. Why this entire issue has been raised to certain level. Let us talk about that. But because it will have a negative repercussions in our business also. You can see today's market is impacted badly. More than 1,000 points it is reduced. So that is actually in somehow in other ways it is connected to each and every aspect. See, Israel and Palestine problem was very old, and it all started when Israeli people, specifically the Jewish people, were wanted to come back to their own country. So the first movement was there 1897. 1897 they called it as a Zionist movement. From there they started coming back to their own land. Originally they left their own land because of the simple reason they were not finding this land was promising. It was old land where maximum is sea, outer is this sea, and then probably the lands are also not that good. So they moved to the different places. Generally, European countries when they settled. But somehow some part of the Christian people think that Jews are the responsible of crucifying Jesus. So very prominent part of the Christian community were started brutally killing Jewish people. By some reason, there's some orthodox thinking about it. That's the only reason behind Hitler was doing this Holocaust. So our context would be that the Jewish people were feeling unsafe in European countries and other countries, so they thought about it to coming back to their land. That's why this entire interesting context started moving. Now, let us primarily talk about this map is very crucial to comprehend with this. This is Israel right now, West Bank, and this strip is a Gaza Strip. West Bank, which is an area where the Palestinians still live, and the rest portion, or as you can say, with us is Israel. So right now, Israel is doing a multi-front war with multiple countries. First with the Gaza itself, then they are fighting with Lebanon, then they are fighting with here in the bottom where they are fighting with Audis, and so on and so forth. And we have seen this. Iran has also put up a pressure by काफी सारे missiles they have thrown up to Israel on this context. So broadly, this entire story was have a multiple dimension. We all know we are approaching to the 7th October, the one of the worst day for Israeli history, where more than 1,200 people were brutally massacred, and they were slaughtered simply. They were some of them were taken care. Girls were brutally raped, and there was really horrifying thing which was happened by the terrorists of the Hamas specifically. So after 7th October, they realized that this need to be changed forever. So they had come up with a war, and for almost now 12 months, this war is running. Unfortunately, in last 11 months, almost 40,000 plus Palestinian people has been died, which is one of the things which we really need to feel really sad about it, because in this war generally the people, those who are innocent, those who don't have any context towards also war, they don't want any kind of a war, they get pissed off, and they generally get this kind of a treatment. Somehow, like these countries were struggling to come up with this. Have seen happen in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. Back to back, these countries being completely demolished. Okay. Finally, the reason behind this entire thing and the Iran on context, I think we really need to understand how Iran played this entire story. Iran is basically a country is a country of Shia Muslims. They have a problem with always the Sunni Muslims population. Majorly, maximum countries in the world are the Sunni Muslim population. So Iran has always tried to overplay. They wanted to control this entire situation, and they also wanted to they also wanted to come up with a solution where if some country can come up and then they can face that situation. So they were struggling with Israel as well as the Saudi Arabia. They were not having a very good relation with Israel and Saudi Arabia. So in a broader context, Iran has created this axis of resistance. You can see these dots. You can find out this axis of resistance is nothing but Iran's proxy war with the terrorist organization. The three terrorist organizations named as first is Hamas in Gaza, which was controlling this Gaza Strip from almost now 16 years, 2006-7 onwards, almost 18 years they were controlling. They were fighting with Israel on a proxy manner. And another they have created in Lebanon. Originally was a Christian country, completely converted into Muslim country, and being west part of the southern part of this Lebanon is being controlled by Hezbollah, another terrorist organization. You have seen the commander of Hezbollah recently being killed by the one of the attack. And the third, just to control Saudi Arabia, they had come up with a third organization called Houthis, which is there in Yemen. Yemen is basically nearer to Saudi Arabia, they wanted to control. So Iran is here, Iraq and Syria, these are the three countries predominantly have Shia Muslim population in general. Rest all Muslim countries you will find maximum Sunni Muslim population. But these three countries are right now, you can considerably say, fighting with Israel. So parallelly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 countries are running with the parallel war with Israel. And I think Iran has recently done one thing which can impact to lead to a global war, where we can simply say Iran being supported by two major economies like Russia and China and Turkey, and Israel is being supported by the Western world, where US and France, Germany, Australia is coming up openly. Britain has put up a statement that on. So that could have a repercussion if Israel will not understand this, that fighting with Iran can create a huge tension, then you may witness a tremendous war on it. So guys, I think what is happening is we don't have a control on it, but what we can do our best is to understand and comprehend, and we can hope these type of situations should not happen to us. Okay. So that's it from today's business news analysis. I tried covering multiple areas. We have covered the business aspect, the political aspect, the international affair aspect. I request everyone you to do share your feedback, and you can put forward your topics that you wanted to cover for my next lecture. And I'm extremely sorry we're not available in the last month, so we couldn't conduct much of a session. But now I will try and cover maximum sessions in a fortnight basis. So you can share your topics, you can put forward, do like and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys, for joining, and wish you good luck for your all learning purpose. Happy learning. Thank you.